Starting with our big focus, of course, is the crucial GST or the Goods and Services Tax Bill that was tabled by the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley in the Rajya Sabha today. The discussion on the passage of bill is underway right now as we speak. Now, I want to remind our viewers, it might seem like this is something that doesn't affect you, but it does. Everything you buy, every service that you avail of will be affected by the Goods and Services Bill. In fact, the Finance Minister is speaking right now at the Rajya Sabha towards the close of that debate, after which we expect voting to begin. Let's dip in very quickly and listen to what he has to say. That's the Finance Minister.
No, there is translation. There is translation. Now listen. No dispute over that. There should be no argument. See. No. There should be no argument over that. Minister can speak in any language he wants. There is translation. No, please. No argument. No. Sit down. No. You cannot raise that point. There is translation.
I'll try.
There is translation.
Sir, I'll try.
That is up to the minister. Please.
Both the languages, there is no difficulty at all. That's the language, at least, will not be an issue. Sir, I think some clarity is required as to how the entire system would function if GST were to come into play. I said in my opening comments that the Parliament is sovereign in the matter of making laws in relation to taxation, which are central laws. The state legislatures also have their sovereignty. Now, both of them are going to retain that sovereignty, but for the purposes of decision making, we are experimenting a new idea in a federal polity, where a pooled sovereignty will come in. The center and the states will sit together and have a uniform tax structure. Now, let me at the very outset clarify that in this uniform tax structure, both center and states need to have an effective state. I used this phrase last week and I am repeating it again in this House. Something that a large number of members have said today, Mr. Sitaram Yachuri in particular repeated it twice, that the Constitution itself envisages federalism and mentions India as a union of states. The states admittedly have to be stronger, but the union also must be there. The union of states can't exist without the union being there. India is not a confederation of states, it's a union of states. And therefore, to envisage a tax system, as has been suggested by some honorable members, where effectively the union government gets excluded in the matters of taxation policy. Now, what was the system which was envisaged? The 2011 bill, and please, I should not be misunderstood. मेरा उद्देश्य ये नहीं है कि मैं ये कहूँ कि उसमें ये गलतियाँ थी, क्योंकि स्वाभाविक है कि इस तरह का कानून जब समय में चर्चा होती है तो सुधरता है, हर दिन सुधरता है। तो 2011 के कानून में ये लिखा था कि कंसेंसस के माध्यम से निर्णय होंगे। अब प्रश्न यह आया कि कंसेंसस का अर्थ क्या है? Is consensus unanimity? Is consensus 75% of the vote, 80% of the vote? It was generally a word consensus. Obviously, the intention was very good, but to implement it specifically was very difficult. So the standing committee said a better system would be, and this was all political parties in that standing committee, which created a new system or suggested a new system to say that states must have 2/3 of the votes, center will have 1/3 of the votes, but the quorum required for succeeding should be 3/4. Now, it is half truth when you say the center has a veto on the states. The states also have a veto on the center. So both have a veto on each other, and therefore the constitutional structure they suggested was a structure by virtue of which both center and states are compelled to work with each other and reach an arrangement with minimum 75% people agreeing. But a happier situation is where almost everybody agrees. So the GST Council, and who's the council? The council effectively represents us, all of us who are sitting here. We are the council of states. They are the state governments which have elected us, the state legislators. So effectively the same view. So today if the GST Council makes a suggestion, there'll be 7 or 8 finance ministers of the Congress party, there'll be a finance minister of the Samajwadi party, there'll be 2 of the CPM, there'll be 1 of Trinamool, there'll be 1 of AIDMK. So almost every political party which is in power in some part of the country or the other would be almost directly represented, or in future is likely to be represented. So that council, along with the central government nominees, is the one which will take all these decisions. And if we look at the structure of the empowerment which is given, the powers of parliament are not taken away. The powers of state legislatures are not taken away. The council has been given functions. If we look at the amendment, clause after clause it is said, notwithstanding anything contained, Parliament may, and subject to clause 2, the power make laws. Parliament will make this law, state legislatures will make this law. Now, in particular with regard to taxation, there are 2 matters in which a greater emphasis has been added, where it is specifically said that Parliament will make a law on the recommendation of the Council. So Council will recommend to us and we will make a law. One is for the purposes of IGST. For the reason that if goods travel from Kerala to Tamil Nadu, who will adjudicate? Either of the 2 states. So one state will adjudicate on the rights of the other. So since the central is adjudicating, but it affects the rights of the states, the power is with the center, but our law will be based on what the council says, which has 2/3 of the majority of the states. And the second more binding principle is the compensation principle, which says, as far as the compensation is concerned, and that is the point that Derek made, and this language has been changed to give comfort to the state governments. Normally the authority of Parliament is supreme. So the Constitution throughout says Parliament may make a law. So out of respect for Parliament, we always use the word may. But the states had an apprehension because of some reason, what if Parliament does not make a law? So they made a suggestion which the legislative department felt was not correct, but we still incorporated it. Please put Parliament shall make a law. So this is going to be the only provision where Parliament is mandated.
Right, we're keeping a very close eye on what's happening at the Rajya Sabha there, and we'll begin our debate in a little while. But if there is voting in the Rajya Sabha, we'll go back to the finance minister. They're addressing concerns from various state governments on the powers that the state will have in the committee to veto the central government and vice versa on making rules when it comes to the GST. We stepped out onto the streets and asked citizens in the country what their views are on GST. Take a look.
हाँ, GST बिल लागू होना ही चाहिए, क्योंकि जितने नेता लोग चोरी करते हैं, घपला करते हैं, वो खत्म हो जाएगा। क्योंकि हिंदुस्तान में 90% नेता सब घपला करने वाले हैं, पब्लिक को कोई सुनने वाला नहीं है, सब पब्लिक का खून चूसने वाले हैं। जिसको जिता के भेजते हैं वही चोर बन जाता है। तो मैं तो रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि सब पब्लिक गवर्नमेंट को सपोर्ट करें। ऐसा प्राइम मिनिस्टर ना मिला है ना मिलेगा। अगर वो GST बिल ला रहा है, सबके हक की बात है, कोई गलत नहीं है, बिल्कुल एकदम इट इज योर राइट।
जरूर पास होना चाहिए, बिकॉज इट विल बिकम यूनिफॉर्म टैक्स रेट थ्रू आउट इंडिया, तो इट शुड बी इमीडिएटली पास। दे हैव डिलेड फॉर सो मेनी इयर्स।
मुझे कुछ नहीं पता उसके बारे में।
No, I am not aware.
No, I am also not.
No.
I have no idea about GST bill, and what I'll say, if
I'll go home and have a look about GST bill. Look, all I know is recently there's been a good inflation. I have no idea what the GST is because I, on a day-to-day basis, am not that informed with the current affairs. If it's going to make sure that the problem doesn't happen, if it's going to decrease taxes, definitely I'm for it.
I think, yes, of course, we all know about what GST is, and I think they should pass the bill. But what it really is going to have an impact on us is we'll get to know about it only once we really experience it. But yes, I think it's a very good, positive initiative taken by the government.
Well, if you're watching at home and you're not really sure what the GST bill is and if or not it impacts you, well, let me tell you right now that it does. Everything you buy, every service you avail of will come under the purview of the GST bill, which is why you need to pay very close attention. As this evening we ask if urban Indians should in fact pay more taxes than we're already paying for the services that our local level governments and our state governments give us. How will the GST leave us, richer or poorer? One India, one tax. Hashtag on. In the studio with me tonight, OP Sharma BJP MLA representing the BJP, Sanjay Jha Spokesperson of the Congress Party, Uday Pimprikar Partner of Tax and Regulatory Services at EY, Rohit Gera, Managing Director, Gera Developments, Rohit Poddar, Managing Director of Poddar Developers will be in the studio through the course of the conversation. Nihal Khatari is the Executive Director, Indirect Tax at Khaitan and Company. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're keeping an eye on the Rajya Sabha and that debate as well as the Finance Minister continues to speak. Nihal Khatari, I'm going to start with you. My main concerns right now for the urban Indian on this show, will it actually leave us with any money in our pocket? Because housing, we know as it stands right now, we don't have clarity from the government, will actually become more expensive if GST is applied on housing at 18%. We're currently paying service tax at 15%. 18% will make it that much more painful.
Yeah, if you take about the housing, one thing which is positive is that you will know exactly how much tax you are paying because it will be transparent and it won't be hidden cost. But what will impact is that certain taxes which are levied on a housing industry like stamp duty, which continue to be there because it is not getting subsumed in GST. But on top of that, there will be a GST, which rate may be higher than what is the current rate combined between the VAT and the excise service tax.
Service tax, yes.
And therefore, if any rate is more than 14%, the housing industry will have an impact of that. And on the credit side, that whatever other industries are getting the benefit, full benefit is not available to the housing industry because many of the items on which the GST will be paid will not get a credit if it is converted into a immovable property. So therefore, there are issues which need to be addressed now because if housing has to be actually affordable, then we have to address those issues when the GST bill is brought after this constitution amendment is made.
All right. I want to bring in Rohit Gera here. Rohit, we've had this conversation several times on this very show. The fact that so much of what we pay for our homes is taxes on the state, the local level, also back-end taxes that developers have to pay for raw materials. This is a massive opportunity here for the government to rationalize the taxes on homes. Not just affordable homes, even middle-income homes, homes in our big cities that people pay massive EMIs for. A huge opportunity that the government shouldn't let go of.
Absolutely, Faye. Look, on one hand, we talk about making homes affordable, we talk about housing for all. And on the other end, you have GST, which is now kind of replacing some of the others, but stamp duty continues. Again, there's no clarity in this. When you say, housing is the barometer for the nation's economy, right? And yet it continues to get a step treatment, even in the GST bill. So I think, it's really unfair. And I think it's unfair to the home buyers. And I think that the government really needs to take notice and actually focus on what do we do as far as the taxation is concerned. At one stage, we were only paying stamp duty. Customers were only being asked for stamp duty. Then they added VAT on it. Now they've added service tax. And now we're talking about GST replacing two, but stamp duty continues. I think this is really, really unfair for home buyers.
It is really unfair for home buyers. And I want to open this up for debate, to all of our guests right now. Uday, we've talked about this on previous shows as well. The fact that on one hand, developers will be able to rationalize what they're paying on the inputs. So things like cement, things like steel that have tax on them. But on the other hand, from a point of view of a home buyer, if I have to pay GST, which will replace service tax and VAT, and I still have to pay stamp duty, I'll still have to pay a registration cost, that will add up to a fair amount, won't it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there is the fact that stamp duty is not subsumed, the fact that there are registration costs, again, which is generally a cascading cost in transactions. That obviously is a problem that we have today. In addition to that, we today pay VAT and a service tax, which are the two taxes which are getting subsumed within GST. Now today, right now, the discussion as of now is getting into whether GST should get implemented in general in the Constitution Amendment Bill. And I think it's too early to kind of, and a little bit premature to kind of think that the rates will definitely increase. What we should expect.
So tell me this: if you're only looking at two rates of 18% and 12%, then ideally
clearly there's a problem.
There is a problem there because even at 12%, that's still too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, today's service tax is applicable, but there is an abatement of about, I mean, a significant amount granted. The effective cost is about 4-5%.
Yeah, in Maharashtra, at least it's 3.45% plus 1% of VAT that we pay. It winds up to be a little more than about 4.5%. So actually the calculation of how we're going to pay GST on homes is going to become very important.
Yeah, and I think I would be surprised as and when the rate of taxes gets decided, which will happen once the GST Council puts in place, that the government is not sensitive, especially when it comes to residential property. I would be extremely surprised that they go the whole hog, don't give any abatement and straight away impose a tax on the entire amount. I mean,
actually, I think that this is a great time to be having this conversation because this is an issue that we need to bring to the notice of the government at this point.
Absolutely.
Because what we've noticed over the last couple of years is that all concessions given to housing have been given to affordable housing in a very narrow sort of description of what affordable housing is. And that description doesn't apply to most of the homes being built in urban India. So my worry really is that if there is a concession also allowed in GST, it will apply to that narrow definition.
Uday? Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I mean, the moment you have a cascading tax such as stamp duty applicable, you need to take into account the effective tax cost and incidence to the ultimate consumer. They did that for films, wherein entertainment tax was applicable. They exempted VAT from tax at the retail level. They will need to do something around that to make an affordable imposition of tax at the retail level, especially for residential housing.
Right. I want to bring in Sanjay Jha at this point. Sanjay, this is a landmark bill. We support it wholeheartedly in terms of the fact that we need GST. It'll make the entire system more efficient. But obviously there are a lot of concerns there that need to be looked at by the government.
I think so, and I think Faye, I think the largest criticality has to be that you can't have an unlimited flexibility given to any government. Remember, this is a politically agnostic statement because it's not about BJP. You will probably have a Congress government and any kind of government can happen in the future. So the truth is that, end of day, it's an indirect regressive tax, as Mr. Chidambaram said it in Parliament. Which means that it affects everybody. You pay it, I pay it, anybody on the street pays it, the rich man pays it, the middle class pays it. And therefore, I think the effort of the government has to be to increase the direct taxes as opposed to indirect taxes. And our belief is that if you look today, that in the last fiscal, Mr. Jaitley increased the service tax up to 14%. Now you have also had this situation very, very surreptitiously. You have things like the Swachh Bharat cess, Krishi Kalyan cess. All these add up and, they are actually being paid by the common man. So, end of day, one of the biggest arguments against, any indirect tax has been that for the government, it is a very complacent way to raise revenues. You just increase an indirect tax and, even if you look at the amounts on service tax in the last fiscal, we collected over 50,000 crores. Now, if assuming that the service tax were to rise up to 18%, which is, we don't even know whether that is going to be the revenue neutral rate that they finally go with. Assuming it rises to 18%, all of us will be paying approximately close to 250,000 crores to the government. So end of day, the common man gets fleeced, which is why the point that the Congress party has been making to the government that you need to have a reasonable cap The Arvind Subramaniam committee report has said that the revenue neutral rate is 15.5%. So you already have a buffer in 18%. And therefore, these are very, very crucial points. And we are looking forward to seeing what Mr. Jaitley has to say. Because end of the day, the common man needs to be protected. Obviously, the manufacturers and the producing community and the traders will benefit because it's going to be transparent, more efficient. It will definitely result in less leakages and even corruption. So end of day, there is no denying that India is going to gain. But it cannot be without equity. It has to make sure that end of day we move towards a direct tax structure, and the GST, which by the way even at 18% would be much higher than what is prevalent in comparable countries abroad.
You know, the other point I'd like to make as a citizen of urban India is not just the fact that we would like an efficient tax collection system, but also a more efficient accountability system where we can find out where this money is going and how it's being spent. So if we have a Swachh Bharat cess, if we have a Krishi Kalyan cess, I'd like to know where that money is going, because there's nothing particularly getting cleaner in our country. Rohit Poddar builds affordable homes. Rohit, when you're looking at GST right now and you're looking at the homes that you build and sell, what are your biggest concerns?
Actually, I'm very positive about GST coming in.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of arbitrage basically in building materials, for example, where people, you know, we have to buy building materials locally in some cases, which are much more expensive. And I think with GST coming in, you can buy material from wherever you want. And I think the costs of building materials will actually come down quite substantially. So I actually think that there'll be a lot more efficiency, better supply chain, and for example, time being spent, time is going to be huge saving in time, and I think it's going to save us 6-7% on the top line. Of course, this issue regarding having a stamp duty in addition to GST, that should have been included in my view. But of course, they have the taxation calculations, I suppose.
Have there been representations, Rohit, made to the government right now to sort of rationalize the quantum of the tax under GST for housing?
I personally think 18% is quite fair. I mean, from our perspective as an affordable housing manufacturer. But obviously, I think that the stamp duty matter needs to be looked at quite carefully once we understand it better. So 18%
GST plus stamp duty plus registration, that's fair?
I don't think that's fair.
Because that's what we're looking at right now, unless we hear anything else. And I think the other thing that was Uday, a little disappointing from the government's end was that we've heard no mention of housing at all up till now in all of the debates and all of the announcements that have been made so far. Nehal, also, we've analysed this, you've analysed this. No mention of housing, no suggestion that we might be looking at a concessional rate.
Yeah. So,
Uday,
yeah. So I think at some point of time the government would need to kind of come back and actually talk a little bit more and give some clarity. I mean, it's going to be a fairly big issue also for transitional contracts where you have started constructing, you've paid some amounts now, and then subsequently also there are payouts to happen and so on and so forth. So clarity is required, and not only clarity. I think there was just before the panel discussion started, there was this lady who came back and said that we understand GST is a good thing, but we don't know what is it till the time we really experience it. And I think the implementation of GST, which is rates, the way they are going to allow credits, the way you need to impose taxes, the payment of tax, what's going to happen with stamp duty, all of those nitty-gritties will actually define the experience of being in a GST regime, and that's I think going to be critical. Give us the
timeline from where we're looking at right now. How long before GST is actually implemented? What sort of a timeline are we looking at this point?
So, to my mind, the draft law is out. Okay, I think now if the Rajya Sabha passes the bill, I think that part of passing of the constitution bill should be just about a formality. With the Rajya Sabha, the draft bill out and the rules expected to be out in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I think the bill would need to get passed through or at least some amount of clarity with regard to the bill getting passed needs to happen by around November, December. Okay. And the bill would get notified after that and get passed, and that need not be. That's like any other bill. It's like a money bill, right? I mean, so.
If I can add, today Parliament discussion that between now and the winter session, the GST law has to be firmed up, and all the rules and regulation, and those have to be debated in both houses of parliament, not like as a money bill but as a finance bill, and therefore there is going to be a debate on the GST bill, because that is where all those, whether sector is specific, what are the issue, what kind of mechanism for taking a credit will all be discussed. Because unless that is clear, the just constitution amendment will not help.
Absolutely.
So including, and in the case of housing, between now and
December. So now in December we'll have clarity on how housing is going to be treated. You were also telling us, Nehul, before we began the discussion, that you expect processed foods to become more expensive. Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah, because see, today many of the food which is processed, they are actually at a very low rate, whether it is under VAT or under the excise duty. Now anything which is not exempted, they will be now having a rate which will be higher than what is the current rate. So therefore all the food which is processed, other than those which are very basic food like bread or milk, etc., all this will become a higher incidence of tax. So how much actually will impact, it will be clear when the rate is decided between what is the merit rate, which is a lower than the standard rate.
All right, the merit rate which is lower than the standard rate. And I also want to bring in OP Sharma here. Sharma ji, aapne suna abhi, there is a possibility, of course, that as we are talking about GST, that homes will become more expensive. जिन लोगों को घर खरीदना है, उनको शायद ज़्यादा पैसे देने होंगे टैक्स में, और अभी फिलहाल 20 या 30% घर की कॉस्ट टैक्स में ही जा रहा है. So this is a good opportunity, Mr. Sharma, for the government to rationalize taxes on homes. We haven't heard any talk on homes right now. Tell us from inside the government, is there something being considered?
देखिए, मेरा इसमें सोच ये है, पूरा देश एक मार्केट बने, सरकार के खजाने में अधिक टैक्स आए और लोगों के ऊपर टैक्स का बर्डन कम हो. तो ये जो आशंका है कि जीएसटी आने के बाद घरों की कीमत बढ़ जाएगी, मुझे लगता है ये सोच ठीक नहीं है. जिस तरीके से जीएसटी आ रही है और डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट अनेकों प्रकार के टैक्स की बजाय गुड्स और सर्विस टैक्स जब उस पर लगेगा तो कहीं ना कहीं उसमें लाभ मिलेगा, और लॉन्ग रन में मुझे ये लगता है कि जो इंडस्ट्री है अपनी होम इंडस्ट्री, उसमें इसका लाभ कहीं ना कहीं आपको मिलेगा. पूरा देश एक मार्केट बनेगा. आप जगह जगह से अलग जगहों से मकान बनाने के लिए पत्थर है, लकड़ी है और दुनिया भर की जो चीज़ें अलग अलग जगहों से मंगाते हैं, तो उन चीज़ों में जो भी आपको लाभ मिलेगा उसका कहीं ना कहीं इसमें फ़ायदा ही होगा. मुझे नहीं लगता कहीं भी कि इसमें इसकी कॉस्ट बढ़ेगी.
All right, from what I understand, PC Chidambaram is speaking as, the opposition in the Rajya Sabha right now. We're going to dip in for a bit and quickly listen to that conversation.
But shall be what happens to that money. It has to go somewhere. I'm implying it will go to the state. But you should spell it out and says, but shall be assigned to that state. Likewise, in 1C, when you say, such amount shall not form part of the consolidated fund of the state, you should have added, but shall be assigned to what? It can't be, it can go nowhere. That's all I'm pointing out. I didn't say it is wrong drafting. I said it is clumsy drafting.
Well, on your screen right now is a statement made by the finance minister that says the GST rate will be reasonable and will reduce over time, and that's really important at this point. Nehal, tell me this. Of course, we were running a graphic on our screen that showed us what the GST or the GST sort of rates are in various countries. They're 12% to 15% and lower. At 18%, it's quite a high rate. Would you think that it should be rationalized and should be reduced over a period of time? That's on your screen right now. 10% in Australia, 7% Singapore, 5% in Canada and Malaysia. Nehal?
Yeah, most of the country the rate is lower. In India, actually, because the government could not get more revenue from the direct tax, they have been increasing rate on indirect tax, which is affecting the common man also. So therefore, in my opinion, the rate should go down over a period once the collection improve, because GST will be operated in such a way through electronic means that the scope for any corruption or any black money generation will get reduced, and therefore more revenue will come by compliance, and therefore there is a likelihood of the rate going down.
All right, likelihood of the rate going down. Uday, of course, like you were saying a little earlier, like we heard, one of the citizens was an auto driver who said that GST must come in because we don't want the kind of corruption that we're dealing with right now. Accountability from the side of the government on the usage of tax, whether that's on the state level, whether that's on the local level, where the local level money is going to come from, that's a big debate that's happening right now. All of our local bodies will have to, of course, look at alternate ways to raise funds for city management, won't they?
Absolutely. And I mean, look at Bombay. I mean, octroi forms a fairly significant part of the municipal corporation's revenue. I mean, it's not small, it's not really big. And with octroi getting subsumed within GST, the municipal corporation definitely needs to start looking at other avenues to collect tax.
Okay.
And that's not only for Bombay. I'm sure it's for other municipal corporations and other local bodies. But I think the issue in Maharashtra is slightly more than other places. And I mean, the revenues would need to come out of fees. The revenues might come out of issues such as the stamp duties and those kind of registration fees, or property taxes for that matter. Okay, it will be an interesting space to see how municipal corporations raise money and how, if at all, any money devolves from the state to
Is there an outside chance that municipal corporations will consider raising property tax or water tax to make up for the fact that they're not making that octroi tax anymore?
They will be tempted.
But what we understand, our sources within the BMC at least tell us that the BMC is looking at a hike in property tax and water tax if the compensation received from the central government is inadequate. So you're right, they're going to be tempted, and that's something that we should all be very concerned about in our cities.
Yeah. I mean, you go abroad. I mean, property taxes out there are humongously high, and I think we are going down that road. I think that those will be material. Right now, they are very, very low. Those will get material, and the citizen will need to pay for the facilities that the citizen receives. I mean, of course, it's a different debate.
We could start a different debate on what kind of facilities citizens are receiving in any of our cities. Rohit Gera, a hike in property tax to make up for the loss of income to local level government, that's something that should worry all of us. Property tax tends to already be very high. The local government is responsible for, its circle rates or ready reckoner rates tends to be very oblivious to what's actually happening in the market. So in a tough market where it's difficult to buy a home, we also know it's difficult to sell a home, this is going to be a bit of a hiccup, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, I think consumers are today, the sentiment is really bad. Developers, for the most part, are struggling. People are expecting, there's volatility as far as people are concerned in terms of pricing. If you're going to say GST is going to add further volatility, and then, the property tax is something which goes out month on year after year in perpetuity. If that's going to start off at a higher base, it's never going to come down. So again, 1,000 rupees that goes out effectively has an impact in terms of a home loan for a home buyer of about 1 lakh of rupees, considering, the 1,000 rupees is the EMI on 1 lakh of rupees. So all this is going to unnecessarily further impact, create more headwinds for the housing sector. And look, at the end of the day, the amount of taxes that we end up paying is anywhere between 25 to 35% of the apartment price is what goes to the government in various forms and different kinds of taxes at a state, at a local and at a central level. Okay, if you're going to tinker around with this, if it's going to go up, it's going to cause further uncertainty. If people are not going to be enthused and encouraged to come out and buy homes, it's going to be counterproductive for the government in the medium and in the long term anyway.
Well, Rohit, tell me this, if we are going to see, of course, and I want to take our viewers through this central excise duty, additional excise duty, service tax, custom duty, VAT, central sales tax, entertainment tax, entry tax, octroi, purchase and luxury tax. These are the taxes that will be replaced by the GST. If on the input end, it actually saves money for developers, is the industry at a point right now where that benefit can be passed on to consumers, and how long will it take for that to happen?
Well, I think it all depends on the detail. At a big picture, theoretically, what they're saying is, you won't have multiple taxes. You end up paying one overall tax. Certainly, that sounds good in theory. But if you're going to take a 14 or 15% service tax and you're going to take it up to 18%, then clearly on the input side there is already an increase. So then what remains to then be seen is in different parts of the country what material you're buying from where, and really what opportunities one gets based on location. Whether buying from different parts of the country actually then is indeed beneficial, and this is not going to be across the country, and you can't treat it with one brush stroke. So I think a lot depends on the detail. It could be good, but the way the indications are currently, I'm personally betting that it's going to be worse off as far as the real estate sector is concerned.
Well, Rohit Poddar, there are other challenges also for the real estate sector. Any sort of joint development, we don't know what the tax treatment is going to be. Land transfers for development, we don't know what the tax treatment is going to be. Those sort of grey areas, and of course the credits that you get on input, how are you going to be able to pass that on? How important is it? And I want to be able to make this panel as productive as possible. I want to understand if there is a list that each of you all would like to make for the government that should be on priority to make sure that certain sectors are looked after. My priority is obviously the housing sector. How important is it for the government to take these things into consideration over the next couple of months when the GST tax is ironed out?
Well, I personally think that they will take it into consideration. We certainly make a representation, and a pretty strong one, so detailing out exactly what the implications are going to be on us across various prices in the housing space, be it affordable housing or MIG or the luxury space, or for example commercial. And then we'll of course evaluate JDAs and JVs and things of that nature as well. I think it's a bit preliminary to discuss this, at the finance ministry level, because they're trying to get the bill passed. But I think over the next couple of months, this will be analysed.
No, I mean, let's take it for granted right now that where we are, they will vote, from what we understand from our sources, that Rajya Sabha will function overtime today, possibly till 10 p.m. or maybe even after, and will vote. Right. By the end of the day. So if we are going to, see a point where the bill is passed, then we now have to move to the next level, which is to iron out the details. Yes. So we have to begin talking about ironing out the details. I don't believe that it's premature anymore. These are representations that we should use platforms like this one to make to the government. Rohit?
Yes, I think once we have an idea of what is actually happening today, then we can start, as early as tomorrow. It's really important to understand exactly what they're talking about, and like Mr. Gera said, the details.
All right, so maybe we can start discussing this tomorrow. Uday, I want to come to you. If you were to put down something that the government needs to keep on top priority at this point, let's assume that we actually get this passed tonight, what would that be?
Actually, execution now, implementation is the key. There are several things, to be honest, it's the largest tax reform or any kind of reform that's happened after independence. Yes. And with this kind of a scale of a reform and the absolute ambitious manner what the government is expecting to kind of execute this implementation, there are going to be several issues. To my mind, the government now needs to get into nitty-gritties. It needs to be fairly purist while policy making in terms of what are the basic objectives of GST. In relation to that objectives of GST, which is unifying the market, reducing the tax, providing ease of doing business, and on an overall basis, getting a more legitimate economy out of this. As long as the government takes all of these objectives into consideration and goes ahead and executes the legislation, the rules and the provisions based on that, I think we'll have a good law. As of now, the law, the way it's drafted, has been drafted from a fairly anxious set of people who are anxious about the amount of revenue that they might gain or lose out on. Some amount of pragmatism needs to come in, and I'm sure it will.
In fact, from what we understand in the speech that the FM is making in the Rajya Sabha right now, he has said states will empower municipalities to raise taxes if necessary. Nehal Kothari, this is something we were worried about. Taxes being increased at the municipality level.
Yeah, naturally, if they are not getting adequate compensation from the states, then they will be tempted to raise the taxes. For example, the entertainment tax, which is now the municipality can raise the entertainment tax.
What are the taxes in the purview of the municipality right now? Property tax, entertainment tax,
and what entertainment tax.
Water, perhaps.
Water, yeah. So all the services which are local services.
You know, in fact, we did carry a story on this channel that there's a suggestion right now to increase a 1% cess on new cars for road safety. This is the sort of thing that we might be looking at in an era where the municipality is trying to raise taxes on the local level.
Yeah, and that 1% can become 5% over a period of time once they know that there is a revenue shortfall. So there is a risk, yeah.
Should there be right now from any level, from the the centre or the state, some sort of a guidance to local municipalities on how quickly they can raise taxes, if at all? Because we can't be looking at a system where we're paying GST as citizens and we are also paying higher municipality taxes.
Yeah. So for services they can directly recover the tax, but any tax which is levied, that has to pass through the state assembly, and that is where they can put a check. It should not be more than a particular level, where actually it become a counterproductive.
Okay, and if you were to put same question, yes.
Okay, but I don't think you need the GST bill or somebody at the center to say you can or cannot lower or raise the property taxes. This is the law today as it stands. States have within their ambit the right to do so even without the GST bill. So that's free, it's free for them to go ahead and do it. So I don't understand the link of connecting this with GST or not. If they're running short of revenue, it's already within their, in their control to go ahead and raise those taxes.
Yeah, you're right, Rohit. I think the discussion is based on the fact that some of the revenues that they were earning, basically the octroi, that was being earned by municipal corporation is now subsumed within GST, and how do they replace that bulk of revenue, and that's the reason why I think Nihal was suggesting, and I have also suggested that possibly to close out that gap, they would be interested in raising some of the other bits. But I think what Rohit is saying is right, and so is Nihal, to my mind. An unfettered right given to municipal corporations or local bodies to impose taxes.
Right.
And entertainment tax, which has been introduced under this present constitutional amendment to allow local bodies to impose entertainment tax. An unfettered right, granted, could be fairly counterproductive, and I think people should be generally worried about it. Some amount of.
So, for the benefit of our viewers, tell us what comes under the purview of entertainment tax. Nihal?
It could be all the like concert. You have those various even theatre. They can levy the tax, which is currently under the state law, but it is removed from state law. It is brought under the municipal tax in the Constitution Amendment Bill. All the amusement park where there can be a levy of tax.
So basically, the Supreme Court has actually dealt with this issue, and what Supreme Court has said is that taxes on entertainment is a fairly wide ambit. And today, entertainment taxes get not only imposed on exhibition of movies or film exhibition, but also on DTH services and cable and all of that, and also performances. And to my mind, that ambit will only keep on increasing because of the fairly wide definition. I think people should be genuinely concerned about it.
All right, people should be concerned. Sanjay Jha, is there a need here, of course, for the central government and the state governments to keep an eye on local level taxes, so that they're not being used to compensate for the loss of income?
Well, there is definitely, apprehension, and I think it's completely justified. If you look at it, even today, you have a lot of people here from the real estate sector. But the truth is, there's like alcohol, electricity, petroleum products, which are exempted from the GST. They're not in the purview of the GST. Even the real estate sector is not part of the GST, because you're not going to have one uniform rate of taxation. So there are anomalies here that exist already. Don't forget, Faye, this is a very critical point, that roughly 30% of indirect taxes that India generates comes from petroleum and alcohol. So there, the states, yes, some states will decide based on their own policies as to what kind of taxes they want to raise, because they are going to be totally independent of the GST Council's recommendations for the state level and the central level GST. But the bottom line here is, and this is the point that we need to understand, that if you give the state an absolutely unbridled power, then let me tell you that it is very, very convenient for any government to keep, in a very creeping, imperceptible sort of a way, to keep raising the GST rate. And that is something that can be inflationary. At the same time, the government will have revenues, but the long-term impact of that can be rather negative because, end of day, if it's inflationary, it is also an additional tax. That's how I would look at inflation. So the bottom line, I think there are sectors that need to be incorporated as and when it's going to happen. We have to wait for the finance minister to let us know that. But the truth is that there will be now a lot of actual political negotiation being done by corporations. And you rightly mentioned maybe people like the BMC. BMC has got a massive budget. Now, if the BMC believes that its compensation is not kind of proportional to what it should be earning, they will have today the flexibility on their own unilateral basis to increase taxes and cess on the common man. So there are downsides and we need to be aware of it.
All right, there are definitely downsides of taxes on local levels. We're going to keep an eye on the Rajya Sabha. We understand that in a couple of minutes we might actually have voting on the GST bill. We're going to cut across directly to the Rajya Sabha right now, where the GST bill has been tabled. It's being debated and it's very likely we might see some voting happening tonight.
There are discussions at a fairly advanced stage, and I'm quite certain that a solution will be arrived at. And when we come before you in November, we'll certainly have a solution as far as we are concerned. Now, regarding Mr. Chidambaram's point that he repeatedly made, he probably has presented more budgets than most finance or any other finance minister. And therefore, the constitutional position of money bill vis-a-vis finance bill is known to him. A discussion or a demand or an assurance doesn't override the Constitution. I have before me a folder full of money bills which impose taxation which my learned predecessor presented to the House, the Parliament. I have a complete folder, and therefore you clearly know the distinction. It is there in Article 110 and the contradistinction with Article 117 as to what is the procedure to be followed. I can only tell you this, that in accordance with whatever is the precedent, and the precedent normally which I have understood, and I won't leave it vague, if a bill imposes a burden on the money coming out of the consolidated fund or is a taxing bill, and it provides for several other things, the bill section of Parliament recommends it to be a financial bill under Article 117. If these additional matters are not there, it recommends it to be a money bill. That's the provision of the Constitution, which Parliament has now a history of almost 66 years in following that. We will fully comply with the Constitution and whatever are the precedents, and we have absolutely no intention, of in any way bypassing the constitutional provisions as far as the requirements of those bills are concerned. Today, what is it? I think we have to be, you are expecting a draft of today, a first suggestion of the empowered committee is not known to me. I neither know the suggestion, nor do I know what the text of that bill is going to be. And therefore, in anticipation and imagining what that is going to be, I must give an assurance. That is something which is extremely unreasonable per se.
With great respect to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition and the Honourable Finance Minister, Leader of the House, did I say? I'm sorry. I apologize. Honourable Leader of the House and the Honourable Finance Minister, there is indeed a definition of money bill in Article 110, and there is a definition of financial bill in Article 117. There is nothing in the Constitution which obliges him to bring a bill as a money bill. He can bring it as a financial bill. He has made it clear his intention is not to avoid a debate, not to avoid a discussion. In fact, he's inviting a discussion. He's inviting our opinion. If all that is so clear, if the intention of the government is so clear, why can't he stand up and say, I will bring this as a financial bill and the other house and this house will vote.
Can you give me a single precedent without knowing what the bill is going to be? I should give on a possible bill that will come. I should give an assurance.
You are not obliged to bring any bill as a money bill. Even if it's satisfied, you're not obliged to bring a bill as a money bill. Show me one provision of the Constitution.
No need of discussion over this.
Show me the provision of the Constitution. Please show me the provision of the Constitution which obliges you to bring it as a money bill. It does not oblige you to bring it as a money bill. So, in the interest of the country, this is the most important transformational legislative change in taxes we are bringing for the next 50 years.
On this issue,
please say, I will bring it
you
as
want
a
to speak
financial
on this
bill,
issue?
and all of you discuss and vote it. Yes?
Where is obliging me? First,
Yeah.
going to me.
Let me make. No, he has already said. He has already said. As per the Constitution, he will go as per.
Months, there have been precedents for the leader of the House to arbitrarily, using discretion at the very last minute, to declare bills as money bills. He did it with the Aadhaar bill, he did it with a private member's bill. And sir, there is absolutely no guarantee that come November, he will not declare the GST bill as a money bill.
Why we discuss
Sir,
this?
let this be.
That's okay, you made it.
Sorry, sir, this is a fundamental issue. He will foreclose a debate in the House.
Jairamji, that's okay.
He will completely foreclose.
He has given it. It is very clear.
He is foreclosing a debate.
He is very, yeah.
इसको आगे बढ़ाइए और जो एश्योरेंस हमने लिया है वो
Voting.
आगे बढ़ाइए.
Yeah, what? See, Minister has given the assurance that he will go by Constitution, only by Constitution.
Still we are facing the problem. Maybe shall be.
Oh, you
still we are facing
some other point.
Yes, sir. Still we are facing the problems in Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act.
Okay.
And now he is telling the clumsy drafting. What
No, leave that.
Which
What's your point?
AP Reorganization Act bill, sir? How it was?
Maybe shall be.
Yeah, maybe shall be is there. Like that, so many. See, there are the revenues.
That's okay. There is no dispute. Sit down.
Why, sir? Why?
You are opposing shall be. You want it to be.
He is the instrument of the drafting of the
listen.
organization bill. How many?
You want to change it?
Bill? How they drafted that bill, sir? On that bill, we are facing a lot of problems in our state now.
No. What I fail to understand is, Minister said it really shall be. You want to change it?
Entire state is facing the problem.
You want to change it?
Entire state is problem. He is the instrument
No,
of
what are you
drafting
doing?
that bill.
See, you
Everything that can, maybe shall be.
You speak clarification. What are you doing? Yeah, please. No. What is? Why? No, that's over, I think.
I just want to make one comment. I think all the distinguished members of this House and the leader of this House and every party will accept the fact that perhaps this particular reform is perhaps the most far-reaching reform that we've had since independence. And I think in that context, for the finance minister to dilly-dally and to say that we will go by the Constitution and not be upfront, he should categorically state that he intends to take this House in confidence for these far-reaching reforms and that he'll take our views into account for the purposes of taking decisions in this House. And if he does not do so, it's quite clear that he wants to bring it as a money bill and he doesn't want a discussion in this House.
Thank you. All right. Okay, now let me.
Point.
All right.
Chairman, sir.
No, I have to proceed.
Mr. Deputy.
No, you said.
I haven't finished. The second point, which is even more important, it doesn't obligate the finance minister to bring it as a money bill. Under the Constitution, under Article 170, he may bring it as a finance bill. So I think it would it would be gracious of the finance minister and of the party to actually bring it as a finance bill, and that's the assurance that this House wants from you.
All right. Okay, now, no, you got your point.
It happened with the private members bill. It will happen with the GST bill.
Now let me proceed with the bill. Let me proceed with the bill. Now please, I shall now put the motion. I shall now put the motion for consideration of the Constitution 122nd Amendment Bill 2014 to vote. The question is that the bill further to amend the Constitution of India as passed by Lok Sabha and as reported by the Select Committee of the Rajya Sabha be taken into consideration. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Now the ayes have it. Under the Article 368 of the Constitution, the motion will have to be adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority.
Honorable Deputy Chairman.
No, please, I started.
We have already said, made it clear in our meetings also and here also, that we are not opposed to this. We are going to support. We have been supporting from the beginning. We will support right now also. But whatever is going to come in the month of November and December in the monsoon session, this is the apprehension. And in this, for the members of this side, that we have been saying on earlier occasions also that number of bills have been presented here and as money bill. So we had no voting power. So this is one of the most important bill, as has been said by my colleagues, the most historical bill since independence. What is the harm if Honorable Leader of the House and the Finance Minister, he assures this House that this bill, which is going to come in the month of November or December, will be a finance bill, not a money bill. So I think the whole purpose will be frustrated. The efforts made by the government, this side, and the efforts made by us during the past few months will be totally frustrated. So I think the purpose is not going to solve. I would submit to Honorable Minister, I would request Honorable Minister to make.
इससे ज्यादा क्या स्पष्ट, आज बिल के ऊपर काउंसिल में चर्चा नहीं हुई, जीएसटी काउंसिल में पहला ड्राफ्ट नहीं मालूम, उसका कंटेंट नहीं मालूम, वो क्या होगा उसके संबंध में मैं आज आश्वासन दे दूं। कोई एक भी ऐसी परंपरा है कि जो ड्राफ्ट तक नहीं हुआ, जिसका कंटेंट नहीं मालूम। मैंने स्पष्ट कहा, मैं आपको इस बात का आश्वासन दे रहा हूं कि हमें कोई उस बिल को, कोई हमारा इरादा नहीं है कि उस बिल को आपसे बिना चर्चा किए हुए हम इस प्रकार से पारित करें, हम चाहेंगे। लेकिन एक बार बिल का ड्राफ्ट बनने दीजिए, और इसलिए ड्राफ्ट बनने के बाद हम आपसे चर्चा करेंगे। आप ही के 8 मंत्री होंगे, 8 of your ministers are going to draft it. 8 of your ministers are going to draft it, and this house will always have an opportunity to discuss whatever legislation is there.
So under Article 360, I continue with
अगला जो फैसला होगा,
that's okay.
के बातचीत करके होगा.
That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said. Under Article 368 of the Constitution, the motion will have to be adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Therefore, I have to take division. Let the lobbies be clear. Let the lobbies be clear.
Sorry, what I'm trying to say. Sir, there is no division.
There is no division. I only said lobbies be clear.
I am just making that point.
Yeah. Let the lobbies be clear.
एजी साहब कह रहे हैं मेंबरों को बोल दीजिए एक बार अपनी सीट पे बैठ जाए एजी साहब कह रहे हैं मेंबर्स को अनाउंस कर दीजिए सीट पे बैठ जाए
Now see, honorable members, each one of you should go to your seat. You can vote only from your seat. If you are sitting in somebody's seat, please go back to your seat. Everyone should be in his or her seat. लॉबी क्लियर नहीं हो गया
लॉबी अभी सर
ओके
ऑटोमेटिक बंद हो जाएगा
Lobby cleared. Okay, lobbies are cleared. Secretary General will now explain the voting procedure. There are new members, they should listen properly, the voting procedure.
Honorable members, for your convenience, I shall explain the voting procedure by automatic vote recording system. It may please be noted that each member has been provided with an integrated microphone and voting console containing 4 buttons: P for present, A for ayes, O for abstain, and N for noes. There is also a separately situated security button in red, which is vote activation, provided on the language selector. A red LED vote now lighting during the voting period indicates that the voting functions are operational and active. To record a vote, a member has to press the vote activation button and one of the voting buttons of his or her choice simultaneously. Each voting button has an assigned LED indicating the correct and valid voting function as long as the button is pressed together with the vote activation button. The voting process starts with a musical sound on the large screen hall display in the 2 corners of the chamber. Each member has to keep the voting button as well as vote activation button pressed simultaneously for 10 seconds. That is at the time of closing of voting in order to register a valid vote. During the voting period, the member can change his or her vote at any time. The vote cast at the time when the voting period is ending will be valid. That is, the buttons kept pressed at the 10th second will be recorded. In case either one or both the buttons are released prior to closing of voting period, the vote will not be registered. The countdown time is also indicated on the display board. If a member finds that he or she has voted by mistake by pressing the wrong button, he or she can be allowed to correct the mistake, provided he or she brings it to the notice of the chairman before the result of the division is announced.
Now, for the convenience of new members, if you want, I will ask the Secretary to read once again. No, no need. Okay, all right. Yeah. The question is that the bill further to amend the Constitution of India as passed by Lok Sabha and as reported by the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha be taken into consideration.
Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. Division. Secretary General.
Honorable members, I am starting the voting process. The voting time starts now.
Yeah, आने दो. Now, result of the division, subject to correction, ayes 197, noes nil. The motion is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. We shall now take up clause by clause consideration of the bill. Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Now, there is one amendment, number 10 by Dr. T. Subbarami Reddy.
Sir,
are you moving?
Yes, moving.
Are you moving?
Yes, I am moving.
Moving, okay.
So this is very important for prevention of environmental degradation. So I propose to substitute power to make laws to impose
Okay, you only say.
or specific steps.
Okay.
I move it.
Yes. Amendment moved. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the noes have it, the noes have it, the noes have it. The amendment is negative. I shall now put clause 2 to vote. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the I think the ayes have it. Yes. Now division. Because already lobbies are clear. Yeah. No need of explaining.
Honorable members, I am starting the voting process.
Division.
The voting time starts now.
And a completely historic moment here for all of us watching right now as Indians, the Goods and Services Tax Bill, the constitutional amendment being adopted in the Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha passes that. It's on your screen right now. We're going to remember this moment wherever we were when it happened, because this will change everything. It changes the way you pay for services. It changes the way you buy your goods. I know the gentlemen in the studio with me are smiling because this is something we've been waiting for a very long time. Uday, huge move here. For anybody, I know specifically changes your life, but for any Indian right now, this changes everything, doesn't it?
I think this is the largest reform that has happened in my lifetime. I mean, so it's a huge change.
And unanimous. I think that was the big point.
Yeah, all political party voted.
Yeah, and I think kudos to the political party. It took time, okay, but I mean it's happened, and I think now it's the time to roll up our sleeves and get this implementation right. But I'm excited, yeah.
Well, it is, of course, a big move. Rohit Poddar, we were talking about this before we went into the fact that this combined with a good, solid, fair RERA will change the way we buy homes in this country.
I think so as well. And I also think that we have a very proactive Chief Minister. So if we have any kinks that need to be sorted out, I'm very confident that he'll basically be there to discuss those matters with the community of developers and make it a fair and executable bill for us all.
Nehal Kunari, obviously now there's a timeline. There are various things that will need to be discussed, various smaller details that every state is going to have to work on before we finally see this happen. Tell our audience what the timeline is. How long before, the bill that I sign on or, is presented to me at a restaurant says GST as opposed to service tax, VAT, education says, Swachh Bharat says, and all of the other things we're paying right now?
Yeah. So the entire process will take about a year. Also, the people have to be geared up. The administration has to gear up for a new law to be implemented, which is still to be drafted. Now, after the Constitution Amendment Bill, GST bill has to be passed by both Parliament and the State Assembly. So, entire process may take about a year from now.
Right.
Yeah. But it is a historic moment that we are going to have this. Yeah. And particularly the home buying, because it is a priority area both from consumers' point of view and also from the employment point of view. And therefore, that should not be left aside.
Are you expecting the finance minister to set a deadline? Is he going to say April 2017? Is he going to say April 2018? What's your expectation right now?
I don't think he can set the deadline because it is both state and center. But yeah, he can actually say that this is the expected time by which it should happen. But the actual implementation will depend on both state, center to actually adopt this.
Right. For those of our viewers who've just tuned in, a massive legislation here. India becomes one market, one tax across the entire country, across all of our states. This changes a lot of things. Nehal, just for the benefit of our viewers who've just tuned in, we heard some people in the beginning of the show say, we don't really know what it is, we don't really know how it affects our lives. Tell them how it affects their lives. In a year from now, when GST actually becomes active, it becomes part of our lives, how will it change the way we buy services and goods in this country?
See, one thing which will be very clear, that whatever is the total tax, which is now part of it is embedded into the cost, that will become a transparent. So you will know how much is the tax burden on each one. Then it is going to reduce the tax on the goods in general, and therefore the goods will become cheaper compared to what is today. Though of course services become little more expensive because the rate will go up in the case of services. But their entire system will be working in a transparent manner electronically, and therefore the scope for all generation of black money, the corruption, the harassment will go away because it will be simplified tax structure. Though of course in the initial period people will have to work and see that they are gearing up to actually adopt the new tax legislation. But it will be very good, very good step for the country because it is going to unify the entire market, and therefore there is an economy of scale, there is a efficiency in the supply chain, and therefore it will benefit each consumer in a due course.
Rohit Gera, fundamentally as someone who runs a business in this country, this will make a massive difference to the way you acquire your input raw materials. It will make a massive difference to just the functionality and the efficiency of the system that you run a business in. Are you looking forward to the new GST regime?
Absolutely. I think this is long overdue, and I think kudos to everybody for coming together finally and actually seeing this through. I think it is indeed, like you've been saying, it is indeed a historic day, and I think we welcome it. We welcome it with open arms. I do believe that it can certainly simplify processes. It can certainly simplify, raise us in terms of the ease of doing business, which is something that the government really wants to achieve. But having said all of that, on the flip side, the only question is what ends up happening to affordability as far as home buyers, and I think it's a matter of time before that actually comes out into the public domain.
Well, obviously there'll be representations made, Rohit Gera, from not just members of the real estate industry, but members of industry in general to the state governments who are going to be drawing up that list. For the Maharashtra state government at least, what do you think is going to be top of mind?
So I think really aligning this, the Maharashtra state government is also very, very clear that they want to push the housing and the affordable housing in the affordable housing space. So absolutely, I do think that they will take this into account. They need to look at balancing revenues because the state really does require substantial amount of money, and looking at the kind of infrastructure that they're planning, the fund requirement is clearly going to continue to be there. So I think it's going to be a bit of a tightrope walk to try and see how to ensure that costs can be kept down to push affordable housing on one end, and also, cost for the end consumer, and also at the other end to continue to retain revenue. So I think it is a tightrope walk that they're going to need to do.
Well, Uday, obviously the other thing that we were talking about is, funds for local municipality. Rohit just mentioned infrastructure. We know that with the entire smart city project, there was actually a need for, at the municipal level to raise money through either bonds or raise money from investors. Should we actually push our local governments into that mode where, like corporations, they have to run good, proper financial systems where they actually qualify to raise money either from bonds or either from investors?
Yeah, I'm getting a little philosophical here. I think
Please
you need
do,
to get your house right.
Yes.
And there's not, you don't need a trigger for it, regardless of whether GST or not, you need to just get it right. Now, of course, there is a larger crying need to get it done, okay? Especially given the fact the avenues for corporations is going to go down a little bit. You cannot, even if you've got powers to impose taxes, you cannot kind of impose taxes irresponsibility. You need to do it, and the usage of that money needs to be far more efficient than what it is. So all of that, I think, has to happen, and given that, I think to some extent you're right. I think they're going to get forced to make this happen slightly better than the way they are doing it now.
In fact, and this is a huge pain point for us on this channel when we track urban issues and the usage of, funds across our cities. If we take Mumbai, for example, the richest municipal corporation in the country, it has a budget that's larger than several smaller state budgets. In fact, we're looking at, 36 to 40,000 crore rupees in budget. It's got fixed deposits worth about 50,000 crore rupees. And there's a lack of accountability there. There is corruption, let's be honest. There's a lack of accountability. We don't get the services that we're ideally paying for. So on some level, even as citizens, we need to be demanding more. So if you were to do the back of the envelope calculation of income tax plus indirect taxes plus everything else that we pay for in terms of property and road and octroi and toll infrastructure, that's almost half of what we make, isn't it? Let's be honest here.
Yeah, it's depressing. Yeah, we pay quite a bit, and I think GST should kind of ease the pain somewhat. Okay, it shouldn't get replaced by some other taxes coming out from some other avenue. We have, and I think the governments realize that they can't keep on milking people and keep on
the
raising
average
taxes.
middle class salaried person who, let's be honest, is the one paying most of this tax.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we are coming to that stage. I think with the kind of transparency that's there today, with media, with all of that, I think we are getting it's a move in the right direction. I'm quite optimistic in general.
Rohit Poddar, obviously a need to reduce corruption on the local level and have a more efficient system of the way our money is being used. We have had people to speak to us on camera saying, I don't mind paying more taxes if I get accountability on where that tax is going, what it's being used for, and if I know that it's not slipping through the cracks of corruption. So obviously in all of our cities, and this is not Mumbai, this is not just Pune, this is not across Maharashtra, in all of our cities there's a need to push for a clearer use of the taxes that we pay.
Most certainly, and I mean from a Mumbaikar's perspective, we have the highest, budget for the year and possibly the worst roads of any metro. So I think accountability is clearly the correct
people
word.
in Bangalore will give you a run for your money.
Okay.
We talk about the worst roads in any metro.
But I mean, we have humongous budgets, and really not being able to make a road is actually a national embarrassment for us. But clearly there has to be accountability, checks and balances in place. And I think that if money is used efficiently, there's really no need to raise additional fees and levies. It's just a question of streamlining the operation and being accountable to the public.
All right, and of course, I want to very quickly ask you about the fact that we know also that at least in Mumbai and some parts of Maharashtra, there are cartels that force you to buy your inputs as a developer. So your cement has to come from a certain set of suppliers. Now with GST in, you would be able to source from across the country. How much of a difference will that make to you? And is that a difference that you can pass on to your customers?
Well, I think it's an open secret that cement's the most efficient cartel in the country. They raise cement prices whenever they want, against market forces and disproportionate to any sort of inflationary index. So I think that, but I think certainly that once you have GST, you'll have slightly more bargaining position of getting cement from other parts of India. So hopefully this cartel will be less effective as compared to what it's been over the last 25, 30 years. But I think other building materials will certainly be easier to source and more efficient. And you'll have, for example, new manufacturing zones being set up that dwell on efficiency and that serve particular mass markets of the country. If rural demand picks up, which we hope it will after this monsoon, then that's going to be a big demand driver basically for manufacturers across the country as well, and make it more sort of widespread. For example, just a small example, most of the tiles of ceramics come now from Morbi because they have tax advantages to basically produce it there. That will go away. Right. So you'll have a change, you can possibly have a radical change of where building materials is actually manufactured and where you source from. And I think it'll change the way supply chain is done from a traditional perspective, and I think it'll be very positive for new manufacturers and also for the industry.
All right, before we wrap up this discussion, quick closing remarks from Uday and Nehal Kothari. Big takeaways. If someone's just tuned in, they're looking at the screen right now, GST is now a reality. Nehal, you first. What is the biggest takeaway for you?
The biggest takeaway is that it will actually benefit everyone in the due course. All the stakeholders will be benefited. For consumer, the prices will come down over a period of time.
Not of everything.
Not of everything, of course. Most of the thing. Goods will become cheaper. Services will become little expensive. But overall, it will be transparent system, and therefore there will be more accountability of the tax.
All right, clearer accountability, Uday?
I think it's a big occasion. I think, as I said it earlier, I think the implementation of this legislation would be of paramount importance. I think it needs to be done fairly sensitively. It needs to be done with some amount of pragmatism. But if it's implemented right, and it actually results in a unified market, it will give a significant fill-up to the overall development. I think there's just no doubt about it.
All right, we have a couple of seconds to go. Rohit Gera, quick closing remarks.
I think, like I said, it's a very moment. It's a big moment, and I think we now need to look forward. We need to go forward, looking at how this is actually done in the implementation mode. There's going to be a lot of action, a lot of activity that needs to take place, including changes in software, changes in so many different things, offices of government officials, a lot of that. So there's going to be a sea change in everything that takes place, and so and it's all for the better. So we're certainly looking forward to it.
All right, of course, we all understand that on every level of the income tax department, there'll need to be an education process that happens on how the new tax is computed, how it's actually collected, how it's processed. We have to wrap up this edition of the Urban Debate on Magicbricks Now. Stay with the channel as we continue to analyze the GST and its impact on you, and we bring you news on civic issues from across the country. That's after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/MagicBricksNow. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at MagicBricksNow. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/MagicBricksNow.